Hi, welcome back to the Gemhawks YouTube channel. Thank you so much for continuing to join me here. I hope that you're having a lovely day wherever you are and whatever it is you're doing. So today what I wanted to show you was how to create your own Web of Dreams. So I have no idea how these are made traditionally. What I've chosen to do is learn my own technique and share that with you. As you're probably aware by now, I do tend to try and make things as easy as possible for everyone concerned. So I'm just going to pop these away and we'll talk about the materials very quickly. For my frame today, I'm going to be using 1.25mm gauge raw copper wire. And I've got about 18 inches. You probably won't need that much, but it's always good to have a little spare. I'm also going to be using a good 2 feet, a good 24 inches or 60 centimetres of 0.4mm gauge wire. I will be putting those alternative gauge references in the description below once it's added to YouTube. So what we're looking to do to begin with is to create a nice circular frame to work with. Now you can use almost anything. You can use a glass or a tin of food, or if you have a professional mandrel, which I've obviously not got with me. So I'm just going to freehand create mine, and we're going to use the pieces that I made earlier on today using a bottle, which is what I had to hand at the time. So you don't need a huge amount of professional materials or tools. You do, however, need a good set of flush cutters to get really nice sharp ends on your wire cuts, and also it's sensible if you can get hold of some bent chain nose pliers. My sparkle handled ones, which I've had forever almost, I think. You can get much finer tip ones which are really very useful, but that curved section on the bent chain nose pliers is really useful, especially in this technique. So if you'd like to pop down to the board with me, we'll have a look at getting started. So I'm just going to put some heat through this piece of wire first. I mean, I do have a clay pot here which I could use, which may be slightly better than just going freehand. It's a bit dusty. We'll pretend that that's not really that mucky. When I do brush the metal on the desk, it does tend to get a little bit bitty just here, so forgive me for that. Okay, so I've got myself a nice circular section to work with, and I've got slightly more wire on one side than I have on the other, and there's good reason for that. I'm just going to put an upright bend here, and all we're doing is creating a basic wrapped loop. What I tend to do with any of my circular frames, so whether I'm working on a Web of Dreams or a Tree of Life design, to get a really nice shape, I'm going to show you a quick tip now, which just makes things look aesthetically just a little bit neater. So I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to put them on the other section of wire, just flush up with where that upright happens. And I'm going to put a little upright bend. If I flip that over, you'll be able to see it's just a little bit in the upright. And then what I'm going to do is grip just past that bend that we've created and pull that wire back round on itself like so. And in that way, what happens is your left and your right of the upright sit ever so slightly more flush together. So I'm just going to pinch that tightly and take the tail around. Now, because I'm using a very heavy gauge wire, this will make it suitable for hanging on the wall. Longevity, you could even hang things like this on your festive tree at particular times of the year because it's nice and firm. So I'm just going to give that a bit of a squish to get that going. And then all you would do is take that tail all the way around. Now there are a couple of ways that you can dress that when you get to the end of the project. If it doesn't get on your nerves, you can leave that just hanging like it is for the time being. Just giving that a squeeze like so to get that coil nice and firm. And all I would do at the top there is create a loop large enough to sit on any threading material. I might want to hang this one from ribbon, for instance. And then this tail I'd chase around a couple of times. This is an extended variation of what you can end up with. So I've gone about 3.5 turns up from the bottom, up to the top there, created that wrapped loop if I flip that sideways, and then brought the wire from the top down to meet and just cut them so that they sit flush at the back. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking to generate. So, as I say, for now, I'm just going to trim that away and make that nice and tidy and leave that long section at the top because I might choose to put a coil over this front section if it doesn't meet my standards and I think it's a bit messy. I'm just leaving myself some options to begin with. So that's nice and tight on that coil. So as I say, I have no idea how these items are traditionally made, and I'm not going to name it as such, but I was inspired to make this Web of Dreams from the Dreamcatchers that I saw in my friend Deb's house. And I started making them about 7 or 8 years ago now, and basically I just want to share with you how I do it. This may not be the traditional cultural way that they're made, but it's how I do it. So I hope that you enjoy the process. It's relatively simple, beginners can access this, and it just takes a little bit of patience to get going with the technique. So I've got some of the finer gauge wire, which is 0.4mm gauge. I'm just going to free off some of that to begin with. Now, you can work with a huge amount of wire, and it's quite tricky to feed it all the way through, especially when you start getting towards the centre of the web. What I would say is it's perfectly easy to add on. So if you wanted to work with shorter sections of wire, I will show you how to put those together later on in the tutorial. So I'm going to take the end of my wire and I'm going to put that through the centre of the frame we've created so that it's lying underneath the outer, and I'm just going to wrap that a good 3 times to get a grip. Now normally I would want to wrap this many times so that there was a really good grip, but aesthetically it's going to look neater if we don't have too many. So 3 is plenty. I'm going to trim that wire away, take my lovely bent chain nose pliers, get that all nice and tidy, and pull that up to the neck of the design. So my fine wire is underneath the frame right now. So what I'm going to do is pull the wire so it's nice and smooth. I'm going to push my thumb into position, wires coming from underneath one side of the upright. I'm going to use my thumb to create my first rainbow, and I'm going to pull that around the outside over the top and then draw all of that wire up through the centre. There will be some noise, sorry. And then chase that around for a second time and then give that a push. So you've created, I like to think of them as mermaid scales or as miniature rainbows. So again, your finer wire is underneath the frame. I'm going to put my nail into position. You could use an alternative item if you wanted to, but nothing that's going to damage the beauty of your wire. So I'm going to draw the wire all the way through. It's coming from underneath, remember, over the top of my nail, around the outside of the frame, so over the top, all the way around once, pull the wire through, all the way around a second time, and back to the centre, and just give that a squeeze to make it nice and neat. And I'm going to repeat that all the way around until I get back up to the top. Now, as luck would have it, rather than watching me do the same thing 964 consecutive times, I have one that I prepared earlier. So I'm just going to grab that, which is just here. So do join me back down on the board. As you can see, I've gone all the way around, and I've left the last one to show you how to achieve moving up to the next line. So as you can see, my finer gauge wire is still coming from underneath. I'm going to put my thumb into position, draw that wire all the way round. Got a little bit of a kink, so I'm just going to unkink that. Another reason for using shorter sections of wire is that wire can get tired and brittle, a bit like me after a long week. So I'm going to put my thumb into position. I'm going to draw the wire exactly as we have done before to the outer margin, around the outside once, up through the middle. So that's exactly the same so far. But with this next move, what we're going to do is helix around the first half of the little rainbow or little fish scale or mermaid scale that we've created. So the wire is in fact on the outside. It's above the first half of that rainbow. So I'm going to take the tail and push it through there. I'm going to support that as carefully as I can and bring that all the way around like so. And what I'm doing now is I'm wire wrapping around the first half of my first rainbow. So I'm going to draw the wire through again, take the tail and push it through. I'm going to support the wire just here whilst I pull the tail through, making sure that there are no kinks and there's no pressure on that first rainbow. And you can see we probably need one more go doing exactly the same. We're just helixing or coiling loosely around the first half of that first rainbow. So I'm posting the wire through, supporting that as it goes, like so, until it comes out at the top of that rainbow. Now, in this position, you can just use your nail to reform. So what I want to do is grip that very firmly and give that a bit of a smooth. So I'm going to smooth that through. The wire is again underneath. So I'm going to grip hold of the rainbow and the fine gauge wire, And I'm going to make sure that that's looking smooth, and all we're going to do is now repeat the process many times. So fine wires underneath, I'm going to create a rainbow. Now for this I'm going to pinch both my first and second rainbows to make sure that they don't move. I'm going to pull the finer gauge wire into position, take the tip of the wire and post it inside that second rainbow, drawing that wire through until we meet at the top. Now a lot of people will just go straight line, and you can see that in their finished work, but what I want to show you is to make a loop. So I'm going to hold on to the wire, and it's almost like knitting. I've come around, through and back, so we're creating a knitted loop, as it were. I'm going to pull that gently into position, getting my wire ready, so I've put it through the centre of the web like so, and then it's ready to sit into position. So what will happen is you'll create your shape and it will sit down slightly. You're not to worry about that, because as long as you keep making equal shapes, what will happen is when you tie off at the end, when you get to your last rainbow and you move to here, you create a definitive loop and all that tension comes together. So you will just continue in exactly the same direction until you get to here, which it's not perfectly central, but that's what you're ending up with. And all those times when you're moving up from one layer to the next layer to the next layer, it creates this beautiful swoosh that moves throughout the design. And if I show you one of the ones I created, oh, this is about 5 years ago, 4 years ago maybe, it's really quite a nice effect when it comes round. And you can add beads if you want to, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. You could use the smashed feather or hammered feather design to hang from the bottom also if you wanted to. Lots of options with your Web of Dreams. So this is what we're looking at. What I could show you, if you like, actually, is how to add on new wire. So let me bring this back out of the way for the moment. Let's say that you're running out of wire, so I'm just going to trim this away here. You want to add on a new section of wire, so we're going to create a little rainbow all of its own, draw that into position, and this is where it's really useful to have fine bent chain nose pliers. I'm going to create my second little rainbow there. I'm going to post that tail all the way through, draw it around and just do 1.5 wraps like so, trim the excess just like that and give that a squeeze. There we go. So that's all nice and neat and tidy, and put that in the scrap pot. And then what we're going to do is add on new wire. Now we want the wire to come from underneath. So that's the underside of the frame. I'm going to push my wire into position. There's a little tiny bit of excess just there. I'm pushing it to the far side of where we finished. I'm going to take that tail all the way through inside that rainbow we've just created and wrap that 1.5 times at least. So what you can do, if you like, is just leave that for a second whilst you create your next rainbow. So from underneath, create the rainbow, pull the wire through, push the tail inside the next rainbow. It's got the shakes. Pull that all the way through, like so. If your wire gets out of shape, you can just give that a bit of a squeeze to make it neat and tidy. I'm going to pull that through and around, creating that loop as we did on the first 2 rainbows. So you can see how easy it is to just add on extra wire, and what you need to do is really weigh up whether you want to have one seamless piece of wire weaving all the way around, which does have its beauty and its aesthetics, or whether you want to have slightly less hassle, especially when you get to the smaller sections. When you do get towards the centre, your wire's been pushed through the hole so many times that it's getting a little bit tired, a little bit fragile, and you may feel that it's actually more important for you to have nicer, smoother wire rather than having one seamless section. So it's entirely up to you. I've shown you both ways, so hopefully you can make your own choices. So I'm just going to move this one out of the way, and we're going to, I've just dropped it on the floor, never mind, eh? I'm going to show you one that I created a little bit earlier on and show you how to add beads if you want to. And also just to let you know that when you finish off, if you've got as far as you want to go, you're just going to finish off in exactly the same way as you do when you've come to the end of a section of wire. So it's just wrapping it around the central section of your final little rainbow, or mermaid scale if you're that way inclined. So if you pop down to the board with me, I'll try and bring this up a little bit to show you the detail. You can see that lovely little swoosh is starting to develop. And I think the idea is that we want to have some central aperture there. So my wire's coming in this instance. I think it's gone over the top. Let me just check. Yes, it has. I must have turned it around somewhere, but the technique is the same as long as you're going from one side to the other. And you can see that this wire is getting a little bit brittle. So I'm going to take one of my very tiny Lapis Lazuli beads, see if I can find any kind of hole in it, and drop that bead down into position. Now you can of course do a single rainbow's distance, but by this time things are getting rather tight. So what I tend to do, I'm just going to push that through like so. I'm going to make a rainbow, skipping from one, miss the middle one, to the second one there. So I'm still going to try and make a little bit of a rainbow shape. I'm going to post the tail up inside my destination rainbow. And I'm going to pull that into position. Now I think that that looks quite charming. If you wanted to continue doing single rainbow to single rainbow, that is of course your choice. So I'm just going to pull the wire into a nice smooth shape, like so, and just tease that wire so that it's flowing exactly how I want it to go. So what I'm going to do now is go one rainbow, skip a rainbow to this one. So I'm going to push through. You're always going to be going from front to back. So in this instance, I'm going from front to back. On the previous example that we were looking at, it was coming from back to front. So as long as you're always doing the same thing, it doesn't matter. So for this piece, I'm skipping that middle rainbow and I'm coming up to the next one along. And I'm just going to do one loop without a bead at all. Now, if your wire gets a little bit tetchy, you can coerce it into shape with your fine tipped pliers. They need to be flat facing pliers. These are my favourite bent chain nose. So I'm going to hold that into position and create that knitted style loop that we were looking at. I'm going to support that really firmly. I'm going to push that wire through the centre, because next up I want to add another bead. So I've got a couple of little Lapis Lazuli here. They're, I think, 1.5mm faceted rounds. Kind of tricky to see if you're me, but still. So I'm just going to try and get that on, and I'll just show you these two and then I'll finish off for you. So that's going to go on through the back there. Like I say, the wire's getting a little bit tense and tired now. So what I'm going to do is skip that central rainbow and come up between the next one along. So if I come a little bit closer, you can see how we're starting to skip. Hopefully that's close enough and in focus for you. Creating that shape, supporting the wire, choosing the destination. Pull that up and into position. And we're creating a loop. So we're coming round the outside, up and over. It's a nice smooth flowing. We're not creating any jaggy edges. Push that all the way through, and then you can continue on your way. When you get to the completed section, once you're happy, you can do another ring of just rainbows if you wanted to. It's entirely within your control how you want to finish your web of dreams. Just finish it off by wrapping 1.5 times around the centre of your final rainbow, exactly as we did in that segment about adding more wire on. I hope that you've enjoyed today's demonstration. Next time I'm going to be showing you how to wrap an hexagonal stone, as it's been requested by a number of you who've seen them on one of my Monday lives. My Monday lives happen at 8 PM every other Monday UK time. At the moment we're British summer time, but very soon we'll be back to GMT. If you feel like joining me, it's over on Facebook at Gemhawks and Gems Gembox, my Facebook page, 8 PM, and we have a bit of a chat. There are gemstones, cabochons, specimen rocks, massive chunks of amethyst, all sorts that are available then. Whew. Gosh, well, I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. I absolutely love making this design. So there's my Web of Dreams. I'd love to see what your Web of Dreams looks like. This one has got a little bit of extra zigzagging around the outside. You could even go as far as to use the spike weave technique, which we looked at several months ago now, and wire that on around the outside. You could go freestyle, just add some lovely freestyle loops. I do look forward to seeing you again in the near future, and thank you so much for continuing to watch. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. Bye for now.